what's happening, everybody? It's Blair Johnson welcoming you in for an episode of Badass Records Podcast. I am excited to share with you that this week's guest, Forrest Saucier, at the time we sat down, he was community relations in charge of ish at Tyler's house here in Kansas City over on the Kansas side. Tyler's house is a safe, creative space for kids grades 9 through 12 who are maybe not involved in any extracurricular activities or sports or don't have a ride or a safe place to go. Learn more about them at tylershousekc.org. They're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. They were at 5903 Johnson Drive when we sat down. They, I believe, have found a new home at 6200 Johnson Drive, but a super cool organization that folks need to know about. Tyler'sHouseKC.org is the website where you can poke around and learn a little bit, maybe share with a friend or loved one. And again, they're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. That's Tyler's House. And I'm thankful that Forrest took some time out of his weekend to come sit with me. You can follow Forrest on Facebook and Instagram. We had a great chat. He's a super sharp, super funny dude. So I appreciate you tuning in and checking out our conversation. New episodes of the podcast air Thursdays. You can keep tabs on it on Instagram and Twitter. Everything lives at the site, badassrecordspodcast.com. You can download or stream wherever you get your music and your podcasts, or subscribe on YouTube. If you would like to be a guest on an episode with me or know somebody that would be a good candidate, badassrecordspodcast@gmail.com. I think that's all I got for you. Appreciate you stopping by. Hope you enjoy the show. Okay, so thank you very much for being here. Just when I got to the point where I thought my episode numbers were coming back in line, they are potentially jumbled again. So I don't know. This will be somewhere in the 130s, I think. Badass Records Podcast. Forrest Saucier, thank you so much for being here. Very nice to meet you, and thank you again for being so flexible.
Oh, yeah.
It's always great to sort of see the other end of it, which is the person sitting in the chair. You know, oftentimes It starts out like, "I'm sorry, who are you? What are you doing?"
Yeah, exactly.
So, as you quickly caught on, I discovered Tyler's house via Sirens in the Suburbs.
Yep.
So community relations is your...
Yeah, it's changed. So when I first started, I was just a volunteer. Me and my partner Danielle had been Googling things to do in downtown Mission and Miriam. And just like you, I saw the name and it kept popping up. And I'm like, what the hell is a Tyler's house? You know what I mean? And so to give that history, I went in. I emailed after I looked through the website, which was still kind of vague, which we're still working on, and met with Corey, who's the executive director, the founder for Tyler's house. And I had worked with kids before. I'd coached private and public school cheer. And done some other things. And so like I had downtime. I was in between big jobs, big roles, and just started volunteering. Well, about 3 months in, they asked me to join the board. Cause I had my hands on everything, like I do with everything that I join and do. And we needed help with a lot of fundraising push and stuff like that.
Okay.
So stepped onto the board, and then stayed just a non-paid board member, still volunteering 3-4 nights a week.
Dang.
Yeah. Up until March, we let go a program director we had just hired. She was supposed to be brilliant. She was straight out of the MBA school at UMKC.
Okay.
And we had her attention at first. Go Ruse, right? Yeah, my best friend just took over the chair of criminal justice and criminology at UMKC, so I'm very proud of him. But yeah, we had her attention at first, and then she got hard to contact, and then she failed to report to the board altogether. And we found out she had been working in a paid role for like 4 other nonprofits at the same time. And so that ended that relationship quickly.
Yeah.
Disappointing because we were really excited from the jump, you know.
Sure.
At that point, they sat me down and were like, maybe you don't want to be on the board anymore. Maybe you want to be program director for a while. So we negotiated a contract and got through most of it, but money ran short, and I stepped out of that a little early.
Okay. Okay.
And now, you know,
Sure.
on to the next.
So, just a couple snippets. 501c3 nonprofit youth organization that promotes safe spaces where creative arts programming serves to heal, connect, and promote emotional well-being among the teens in our community.
Yeah.
Safe creative spaces for students in grades 9 through 12. It's at 5903 Johnson Drive, Mission, Kansas. If you want to give them a buzz, 913-214-1810, or there is info at tylershousekc.org, and of course, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram.
You know, all that splash blurb about us is a really fancy way of saying we get a bunch of kids in a room, we make sure we feed them food they might not get somewhere else. Somebody's going to cry at some point. It might be me, you know, and the kids reveal things and share things they probably wouldn't in a lot of other environments. And kids, we don't recruit. We don't go into the schools and advertise.
Oh, wow.
We don't stand outside of buildings and say we have this after school program over here. Every single kid at Tyler's house was brought by another kid at Tyler's house.
Oh, cool.
Which is good and bad. It means we have a type, right? It means we have our kids are, for better or worse, the kids that live at the edge of the classroom typically. I would say
trying to stay unnoticed. Is that what the edge of the classroom implies?
Or being shoved to the edge of the classroom. One of the two.
I got to
right?
keep my eyes on you. Move to the front.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just all of that, and maybe a lack of peer acceptance. You know, you name it. So we do have a type. The amount of acronyms that we deal with on a daily basis. You know, ADD, ADHD, ASD. And that's before you get to the big alphabet with the LGBT. You know,
Right.
We all of our kids are just a collection of acronyms, and so all we do is accept them for who they are, and try to get the best training we can on how to help them. You know, none of
Where
us.
does that come from?
Yeah, so Johnson County Mental Health has been incredible in their support of us, both financially and through training. And the most recent experience we had that was incredible is they have a training module called Youth Mental Health First Aid. And the whole idea is we're not mental health professionals, right? We're mental health amateurs. But what an amateur can do is stop the bleeding until you get to the doctor,
sure.
right? And so once we got that training, that locked a lot of things in for a lot of us, I think, where we thought it was our role to solve some of these problems, but like, we can't. You know, these kids are so deep in it. These things have been happening in their homes and their schools for so long. This is the COVID generation. Right now we have the kids that were leaving elementary and entering middle school right when COVID was at its worst. And so their socialization is completely whacked, you know. So even when you think you're communicating really well and you're doing your best textbook job, you might be failing because they're just not adjusted in that way.
Yeah.
So you have to leave a lot of room in the room, you know, and that's what works really well for those kids. So that's really what we're doing.
Cool.
Is just accept them for who they are and keep an eye, you know.
So there's a schedule that includes sessions in creative and performing arts, STEM activities, health and wellness, career explorations, and more. And then connect, create, belong.
Yeah, CCB is
from
big.
a KC Star article. Second graph of that described a kid that walked a mile.
I've heard of worse. So we have kids that Uber teens to get to us.
Really?
Yeah, we have kids that bike in the rain. I took one of our kids home once, which we really try not to do because liability. But at the end of the day, sometimes there's weather or it's dark and it's just not appropriate to let them. You know,
home to their home.
Home to their home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dropped them off at their apartment complex, and it was like 2.5. They'd been walking or biking 2.5 miles to get to us.
So nobody's coming kicking and screaming. They're coming because they want to be there.
All. No, I mean the closest example, and I won't use any names, you know,
No,
for
please don't.
client
Yeah,
student and client privacy. But we have a kid in the program who had to leave a bad situation in Hutchinson, Kansas, and live with dad, I think for the first time in a long time up here. And so they're both, I think they're learning how to be a dad and learning how to be a kid free of a bad environment, both of them together for the first time.
Trauma training.
Yeah. And trial by fire for sure too. But dad found us and then slowly sold the son on being there, and now the son wouldn't miss it for the world. But it takes a while. It takes, there's an adjustment period.
Of course.
You know? It's like how we get in the pool, it's one of those, oh, it's too cold, you know. Our kid first shows up and they're sitting near the front windows. A lot of times there's headphones. They have their notebook, they have their computer, their laptop, their iPad, and then two people are sitting next to them a week later. And then they move further into the building, and now they're in the comfy chairs or the bean bags, and they're louder, you know? And you can just see them kind of open up in the space, like physically as they move backwards in the building. It's like they're gaining confidence, and it's really cool.
Letting the old guard down a little.
Absolutely. Yeah. It takes time, but it's cool to see it happen.
Yeah, man. So Corey Hastings' vision for after-school kids who didn't have extracurricular activities or a ride home necessarily, video game teamwork, floral management design, open mic nights, movies, arts, robotics, musical instrument learning, snack bar and cafe, graphic design and skill, variety of crafts.
We cram a lot in a small space.
Impressive.
Yeah. And frankly, we've had to evaluate if we're over programming them. You know, there have been discussions about, you know, right now we're open 5 days a week for the summer, 5 to 8:30, and I scheduled programming every single day.
5 to 8:30.
Yeah, 5 to 8:30
p.m.
Yep,
PM.
daily. Normal school year where we start at 3, obviously, because they get out of school at 2:40 and they walk down. But there has been discussions about maybe there needs to be more free days, and what we've done is if we have to cancel a program for any reason, lacking the supplies or the volunteer or the presenter, we just say, okay, today's a free play day, and that's kind of solved the problem, because it is usually like once a week if you have 5 programs running, you know.
Yeah.
So they love that, because then they get to go feral and yell at each other on the Switch and, you know, tinker around in the maker space and sit at the snack bar and kill 7 beef sticks, or, you know, because they're kids. And so that is a lot of how it feels and how it is right now. Yeah.
So you joined in 2021?
No, it's just last year.
Just last year?
Yeah,
okay.
March.
I'm sorry, no, it opened in 2021.
Correct. Yeah, we just had it. Well, if you include the organization starting out of Corey's home before we had a physical space, our fundraiser at the Aztec about 3 weeks ago was our 4th birthday.
Okay.
For Tyler's house.
How did that go?
Fantastic.
Nice.
The support was great. The turnout was great. As a functional fundraiser, it was great.
How much notice were folks given in terms of...
We had it on the schedule for about 2 months, so not
internally?
No, I mean, we'd been advertising.
You're putting
for
it
about
out
2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did a fairly good job. We're really wet in the beak and new for fundraising. Private donors, grants, and the money from Johnson County Mental Health had really been holding the organization together. But now it's growing, and there are growing pains. Me coming off contract much earlier than expected is one of those. I just cost too much. I'm a private consultant, and so I took my price way down for them, but it was still much more than a 501c3 typically wants to bear. But it all worked out. So, I did a May the 4th Be With You Star Wars fundraiser. That was our first one to really kick off that string of fundraisers. We only had 15 individuals register, but we averaged $100 per registrant after ticket and donation and silent auction at that one. So that's really efficient. That's
cool.
Really good. And then I don't know the exact stats for the Aztec, but we
sure,
we made a good
trying to connect with people, and then of those, okay, here's the yeses, and then it's scheduling, and it's a fascinating animal to see. Some people are concerned with soon. Some people are like, I cannot talk to you until October.
Yep.
Some people don't care.
Yep.
And then to see, artists with exhibitions, bands playing shows, release, like, you'd have to try hard to not live in the social media world, like to 100% avoid it everywhere you turn. So with everything that we're getting in our feeds and in our inboxes and whatever, I'm fascinated with what is the right amount of time to hit people. And it sort of seems like in some instances a month is okay. you're obviously going to lose folks that have vacation and
Yeah.
games and whatever. And then 2 months is kind of like, God, that seems so far ahead, but it's not,
Yeah,
right?
I mean they're different crowds, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like my age group, we live about 3 weeks out, right? We're professionally tied up enough that you're not going to get us on 48 hours notice typically, and if you tell us 2 months ahead and we don't put it directly on the calendar right then, it will leave our brains.
Yeah.
So with 2 to 3 weeks is the sweet spot for my age group now.
What are the bookends of your age group?
So yeah, I'm 37.
Okay.
So the 29 to 39 crowd or whatever that is.
Well, you went 8 years one way and only 2 years the
Yeah,
other.
well, yeah, I don't. Well, it's because I'll just be legally dead once I'm 40. I'm literally starting a young professionals group right now inside the Northeast Johnson County Chamber, and I'm like, well, I better hurry up and get it started. I only have 3 years left before I have to kick myself out of it.
Right,
So it's
yeah.
really comical when you think about it like that. But yeah, and then but the more luminary, like important or established the people are that you want at your event, the more lead time you want to give. As would be the pattern that I've seen.
Luminary. Fascinating word
You-
choice.
that name showed up to your event kind of person.
Oh, yeah.
Mayor Quinton or
Yeah.
whatever. And we get a tiny bit of that. Sharice Davids has been in our facility more than once. One of our newest board members is Mario Garcia, who's now the school board, sits on the school board over the North area for the Shawnee Mission School District. So we do have some support that comes from places like that. That being said, not enough. We're broke.
Right.
we really,
Right.
we really need some miracle lightning strikes.
I mean, you kind of will always be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you don't get to have that 501c.
yeah. Now is uniquely tough. We have a hostile landlord currently. The Mission Theater sold all of the strip except for themselves right there on Johnson Drive, and we've communicated with the other tenants up and down the way, and they all feel pushed out. We had a roof leak that pretty much destroyed the wood flooring on one side of our facility, and so now we've had to block it with a table and chairs so the kids don't. Yeah, non-communicative, slow to communicate, was completely indifferent to our 501c3 status or our work with at-risk teens. Just doubled our rent. They keep adding improvement fees. It's pretty gross. Yeah. So
I mean, there's an element to the word landlord that's always going to have just a little, or just be completely gross across the. I mean, there's a swath.
It
right?
is. It's like when you go through that bad dating period, right? When you're about to meet a new one, you're like, okay, do I have an exit plan? Do I just need to run, or is it, hopefully they're cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to hold their hand for 10 minutes. And this is not the case with this one. They've been actively showing our space, and we're assuming that we're being pushed out in September, which would be the end of this current lease agreement. They're not interested in another year-by-year lease. I think they want 3 minimum, and we can't even reckon with that level of agreement given our funding. So, and frankly, we've outgrown the space. We're maxed out. We're maxed out at 35 kids on a Friday, 35 kids, 5 volunteers, and it's asses to elbows. It's just, you're doing the creep around.
For real.
Yeah. It's not a large space. We do a lot with it, and it's super dynamic, but it's not large.
Are there, is somebody shopping?
Plenty of people, yeah.
Okay.
We have some help from Stag. I don't know if you know Stag's Park, but it's a commercial brokerage. Kevin Tubasing, who's very active in a lot of community stuff, is very bothered by our situation and is helping us out. We've already had 2 or 3 commercial brokers kind of spinning around the last year, but everything they're showing us is ridiculous. It's empty office space that's 1.5 million, and it's like, guys, I don't think you understand the books. We need a rent that hits around here, or we need a rent to own that hits around here, and we need to improve by 2,000-3,000 square feet. It's a tough math problem.
Is there a sense of hopefulness? Because September is like tomorrow.
What can you do other than be hopeful, I guess, is what it comes down to.
Good point.
Nobody that's involved in the organization is interested in any period of dormancy. We don't want to have to restart. We don't want to lapse in our coverage with these kids, so to speak. This last year we intervened in like 16 suicides. So if you go away for 3 months, that's a kid that might not have
resources,
that exposure. Yeah. Might not have that connection, or might not have, they can text us, but if we won't see any signs. They won't be in the physical space. We won't be there with them. So when you talk about, well, we'll just be quiet for 3 or 4 months or a semester and then we'll come back, like that's human lives, question mark. You know what I mean? So it's pretty serious. But also you can only do what you can do.
Yeah.
So if the resources aren't there, they're not there.
Wow. So tylershousekc.org, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And again, Facebook, Instagram.
Our
There's a
Facebook and
LinkedIn.
Instagram tell our story really well. You
Cool.
get to see the kids moving, talking. You get to see all the various activities. We just did one of those, fluorescent UV garden towers in the space. So we got kale and and all sprouts and all this crazy stuff coming out and just sits in the space. It's really good at reminding you to use the bathroom because it does a waterfall like every
There
45
you
minutes
go.
to keep
There
them.
you go.
So
Nice.
so that's fun if nothing else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean we hit them with kind of everything. And we just had our first real graduation ceremony
Cool.
because previous it's been just kids kind of fall out as they go to school or as they leave high school, and now we have such a mix of ages and school types, and are they graduating, what does that look like for them, that now we have to have like an official fall off date twice a year so that we can actually keep from having 20-year-olds at Tyler's house.
Yeah.
And so we did our first graduation. It was really cool. We sent two twin boys that were just amazing human beings. They just started boot this last Sunday with the Marines.
Dang.
And then, and had another two students graduate alongside them. So we've got a young group right now. We don't have a ton rushing towards the end of school. Everyone that's there has probably got a couple years left with us, which is really cool. But yeah, and we'll see how it goes.
It's wild to me to think that there are still in 2024 as weird I got a decade and change on you.
Yep.
As weird as the world has become in some elements, in some ways it's still the same old good world, but that there are still young people that are I'll do armed forces stuff.
Yeah, I'll tell you there. So we have a code phrase at Tyler's house for when I'm out back crying. And it's Forrest is taking out the trash right now. The kids will hit you with stuff sometimes, and it's just so hard, Those twins, and again, I can't use names.
No.
But one of them, when he told me he was joining the Marines, it made sense. He's a hardcore athlete, right?
Okay.
Very focused, very determined, super self-organized, except for when he needs to make a phone call for somebody to pick him up from Tyler's house, then it fails. His brother, on the other hand, softer, more creative, more of a gamer, a little more social. And when he told me, it made no sense, even though they're twins and you would assume they're the same person, right? And that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, okay, congratulations. And then right out back, because I was like, all right, are we just putting these kids in the pipeline?
I already was a teeny bit curious.
Yeah.
And before you mentioned that they were doing that, I was curious if you're, graduating kids out, is the feeling when that happens that, they have a skill set and some confidence that they didn't necessarily enter Tyler's house with, and so for them to sort of wander out into we feel good about it, or is there a situation where you kind of need to help people shop for the next chapter of their lives?
We're still actively helping 2 of those 4 graduates find resources to stay on their feet. One has been on the edge of homelessness a couple times, and so, but you don't solve those problems overnight,
No.
So, but you're 18 and your school's done now, and we have to keep this program moving forward. So you can absolutely call us at all times, but being physically here with the programming is we're graduating from, so we don't leave their lives 100% after graduation day,
right,
like a public school. We definitely still engage and throw resources at them and check up and all those things, but there is a little bit of that, like, hey, there's, we met 8 new kids last week, they need our attention and our time now too. And you've built a network while you're here. You have like 10 new friends you didn't have before you walked in the front door.
What is a thing or two that you or someone else has encountered or experienced when this kid is gone now, but they maybe don't have direction or resources, or and they're reaching? What do they need? Does it vary
it's
widely?
Usually still the emergencies, because for all that these kids are open and share with us, they can be prideful, and a lot of times we hear from them when it's like, well, I actually don't know where I'm sleeping tonight, or my paycheck from my awful tiny job isn't going to hit for a while. Is it okay if I come grab a huge bag of snacks from Tyler's house? And the answer to that's always going to be yes, and so we do what we can to plug those gaps, but at the end of the day, we're we have to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And they've got, sometimes we're the nest maybe they also still need to be out of. They figured out the home situation, but then had to fix some emotional things at Tyler's house. But then there's a period where you got to learn to fly from that too.
I love that.
Yeah, build your network just like you did at Tyler's house, but find a new place, find a new job, find a new role that does that for you. So because again, these kids were super ill-equipped. We like to think we equipped them a little bit more with stuff school wasn't going to touch at all. Like a lot of our programming is adulting, bringing in banks, bringing in insurance agents to talk about like human adult skills that
Can
are
you
not
get
taught.
kids' attention with those
We-
kind of
oh, you'd be
topics?
oh man, Elizabeth Shelley from Security Bank, and I work with her a lot now in my new work life. Brought an entire bucket of candy and basically would just throw a half handful at their heads every time they answered or asked a question. She got them super engaged, and they got to write fake checks to whoever they wanted for whatever they wanted, and the little did they know we were sneaking in all this adulting on them, and if you mix food with the programming, you can get them to listen to just about anything. So when Denise Garcia from State Farm Insurance shows up to talk about what is driving and what is renting insurance relevant to their age group, and there's a huge barbecue spread behind them, suddenly they're paying attention for some reason. And we just try to kind of put that stuff in front of them that nobody else is. We did job panels, and we're conscious of the fact many of our students are not college bound. So the job panels were trades and entrepreneurs. They met a female metal worker. They met the brewer from Weston Brewing Company on the Missouri side, the owner of Storybook Forest, a children's party company, the owner of European Floors, who does flooring, and is like an immigrant. He grew up in Transylvania, of all places. And they met people that have scraped and clawed to get to where they're at. And some of them still work with their hands, some of them don't. But none of those people had to go to school for 4 years to land where they are. Everyone learned it as
A lot
they
of
went.
good exampbles for
Yeah.
the non-college bound.
So that's what we put in front of them so they can see it.
Now, what do you think? Best, I know this is a dart in a dark room.
Yeah.
When I was graduating high school, I felt like I'm a USD 512 kid, so my class was like 413. If you heard like 2 or 3 names that like weren't, now there were some kids that were like that they're going into like trade type of programs because that's their jam and that's what they've always been into. But there'd be a few kids where it's like they're not in that trade umbrella listing. They haven't chosen a school.
Yep.
Do you think that, more or less high school graduates are still looking at college the same way they did 10 and 20
Not
years
even
ago?
close. What's ironic is and credit to the Shawnee Mission School District, they're doing their best. They're in a lot of transition. They're still reeling from COVID and trying to recover.
No kidding.
They're just trying to get kids back into school still. It's been 3 years functionally, and the truancy stats are as bad as they've ever been. Yeah, it's unbelievable because the truancy was a criminal act when we were young.
Oh, it's not anymore.
No. So if your parents just don't have the energy to push you out the door, you're staying home. With
No
one of these
way.
families, 100%. And so, the predictor of success is showing up to school. So if you're not, you're in a category that's dangerous. And again, a lot of the kids that we're seeing are in those. We've got kids that very casually, like we used to have a lot of shame and guilt attached with being held back or being slow in school. These kids are just like, well, you know how I told you I was going to graduate 6 months late? Looks like it's going to be a year, and that's their tone when they talk about it. Whereas with us, we wouldn't even want anyone to know. We'd want to transfer frickin' schools.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's changed. The kids are pretty apathetic about college as a concept. They're not dumb. They're fully aware that college debt is the middle class killer. Yeah, I mean they just know, and so a lot of them aren't hyped to do that at all. They're like their least favorite thing in school is when people want to come and talk college with them because it's a waste of their time. Yeah. And again, SMSD is a great school district, but they just have no self-awareness about the fact that a lot of their kids don't fit the high school into college pipeline anymore. They're not adjusting fast enough. They're not accommodating enough students.
The district.
Yeah, the district overall, and teachers and administrators are so worn the hell out that even if they had the vision to fix the problem, the will might not be there for these kids. There's a lot of good things in SMSD. We have the Center for Academic Success or Excellence or whatever we're calling it. The Broadmoor Bistro, one of the coolest culinary programs available to high school students in the whole U.S. Tons of cool stuff happening there, but that building's only so big. And the busing capacity to get kids from all the SMSD high schools to there every day is only so much. And so we're at Tyler's house filling a lot of those gaps. And ironically getting very little attention or support from the district. Verbal support, sure. They love to talk about us if somebody asks them directly. But like, if we were an extracurricular at Shawnee Mission North that's non-athletic, we'd be the largest one. So just processing that and the fact that when we want to come to like a job fair, it's a fight to get in the door blows my mind. Like it's a little rough, you know. So that's something we're actively working on. But again, we can't really grow anymore.
Does
so.
that? Does that? So you want to do learning opportunity X at North. I mean, to make that all happen goes beyond the people in the building at North, right?
Sure,
you have to go. And so what is it up here? Is it money? Is it people are too busy? Why would that not be?
I think people are just overwhelmed. I mean, if I had to be, there's no bias against us. They understand exactly what we're doing, and
Now,
if asked directly, they love it, right?
people are overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. People that inhabit planet Earth, like people in general,
people in
or
education,
in education.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean they're
too much on their plates.
Yeah, and SMSD's trying. You know the outgoing principal at Hawker Grove Middle, amazing person, amazing guy, Chris Case. He has revolutionized middle school because middle school is a miserable experience for most people.
Bro.
And I went to a couple things at Hawker, and the energy in that place is just different. So he did a great job, but he got yanked out of there because they needed help with HR at the big office, right, at the district office, because he's such a personality, and retention is the number one problem for keeping teachers in the job, right, and finding new teachers when they go is the number one problem. So his brilliance has now moved from the administrative, which is where we want these people, right, to the survival of the district, you know, in HR and recruiting and retention and all that good stuff. So tough decisions. They have to make a lot of tough decisions with their best people.
Now, if it's accurate that numbers, generally speaking, are down, high school to college, mm-hmm. and existing places of education, one of their biggest struggles is finding teachers and keeping teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, those two things are going to meet.
They crash. I mean, there's already a ton of subsidies for new teachers or education towards being a new teacher. Like if you wanted to find some money for school, saying that you're going into education is a really smart idea. There's a lot of money on the front and back side. So once
what does that mean, front and back side?
So when you go into education for education and when you start teaching, it's just competitive as hell right now. It's like police departments, right? The money's creeping up very fast, and the sign-on bonuses are creeping up very fast because there's a lot of holes that need to be plugged. And so that's one positive education trend, I guess, if you're interested in being a teacher.
Right.
There hasn't been many better times.
Yeah.
But very few people are. You know, parents are awful. And I can say that as having coached in a public school environment, not even recently, but like 2008. Like I left coaching public because of parents. The kids are amazing.
What would they do?
They all want to be in charge, and they don't realize that, like in a democracy where we have to make compromises because we're all different people with different opinions and different cultures, they don't realize other people's kids exist. And so they come in and they're like, well, this is what's perfect for my daughter. And I'm like, cool. I'm looking at the average across all of your daughters.
Athletics?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did cheer, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And cheer moms are not the worst, but they're up there. And so, you know, when you get the worst of the worst parents that are trying to live through their kids and who are way too hands-on and who are checking their kids' emails every day and those kind of people, they push you out really fast. They're exhausting.
Well, we're Missouri side private, mm-hmm. And my daughter, not this school year that just ended, the one before, at sixth grade, they start creating A and B teams, mm-hmm. and they bring in like parents and coaches are not allowed in the gym. It's totally closed off. There are evaluators on the stage taking stats based on uniform number, and then they say, here's your team for sixth grade girl, whatever.
Yeah.
She was on the B team in sixth grade, and it was a not good experience. And so going into this past season, the basketball coordinator was like, what about you? And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Sort of assuming my daughter will be on that team.
Yeah.
Well, because I made her play through the Shock program, which is you're in a USD 512 school for
Yep.
every game and practice.
Yep.
For consecutive. So, long story short, she ended up making the A team, and they were like, "If you want to bail," I'm like, "No, it's fine." So this basketball season that just ended was my son's team, my daughter's team, and then my team.
Yeah.
And it was
A lot.
2 practices a week per team.
Yeah.
8 regular season games, preseason tournaments, postseason tournaments, and for a lot of those things were for regular season stuff were just in the diocese, the network. For all postseason and preseason stuff, we're in USD 512 buildings, which puts you're crossing paths with lots of basketball families because it's like the people that are for the game before years and then the people that are for the game. And I mean, we've seen some like folks get technicals. We've seen dads shoving in the parking. I mean, and this is just basketball for not even high school age kids.
And at your age group too. That's even wilder. Yeah.
So there's a million other tentacles to where parents have the opportunity to look crummy.
And there's something there's something uniquely bad about the public school parents, and maybe this is colored by my experience in cheer. Right, in cheer, you've paid so much that there's almost a recognition that the coach or the owner of the gym knows what they're doing, right? And in cheer, the moms, you don't want to be the kid, but as a coach, they're pretty damn nice to you, it's not, why did you do that to my daughter? It's, why did you let my daughter fail in that way? The language changes, right? Cheer's unique. It's very technical. It's high impact. It's the highest rate of sports injury in the sports world, right?
No kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, you're throwing people in the air. And...
Yeah, the weights, the sizes, dimensions, power levels, strategy, all of it. I mean, I have a shoulder that will never be the same again because of my college cheer days. I tore the hell out of that thing, right?
I bet.
And I've seen some injuries we won't even cover today. There's a lot of NSFW stuff that happens in cheer that's just rough and it sticks in your brain. But the parents are not that bad once you go private. They're invested. It changes. Public school, they're entitled to. Their kid has to go there. It's free public mandatory, right? So they feel a different sense of entitlement on that side. I feel like, other people may feel different, but that's been my experience. It's really weird. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did I see that born and raised in Sacramento?
So yeah, we left Sacramento. So my dad was an engineer with Sprint. Sprint moved from Sacramento as a headquarters to Overland Park in
I didn't know it was headquarters elsewhere prior.
Yeah, the primary load of workforce was Sacramento and its suburbs, and then they built the campus here and everything came out here. So did he. We followed 2 years later because he came out in 95. I moved here in December of 97 from the valley in Sacramento where the average temperature has like a 20-degree range and where fog is our weather,
right.
To December of 97 and a heavy snow, right? So that was a culture shock. It was also the tail end of 6th grade. I left a really awful gifted and talented program in Sacramento. Sacramento schools were not awesome. And then came out here to just run-of-the-mill normal 6th grade at Comanche over in Overland Park, and just everything changed. Social situation, expectations. We were just groups of friends in Sacramento, like I think emotionally behind maybe. Kansas City, strict hierarchies. You must dress this way. You must, but like a whole different culture. It was wild. So it was a fun adjustment, but yeah, came out from Sacramento in 97.
So everything changed more or less for the better. Not everything.
I mean, when you just want to wear your wrestling T-shirt and your sweatpants to school, and be a chill kid, it can be a little rough. And so I in some ways understand a lot of our Tyler's House kids because I got thrown into a situation I was not equipped for. As I'm wearing my Sting T-shirt, leave me alone guy. And then fast forward to 9th grade, and I'm
Sting as in Scorpion Deathlock.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Not the Police.
But it was the Wolfpack T-shirt. It was the red face paint. I wore that shirt more than anything I've ever worn in my life. There's so many pictures, it's embarrassing. but But fast forward to ninth grade after being suspended, I don't even know how many times in middle school, really figuring it out, and I'm running for student body office. I left Shawnee Mission West as student body president. The only club I wasn't in was like dance because they didn't have an outfit in my size, and so I just did everything. And so I saw a transition in myself that I'd like to see for our kids
Cool.
too. But you take the victories you get, and,
Yeah.
and I might not even know how some of them turn out because, like we said, we're graduating them at 18
Right.
at the appropriate moment, and so you just hope you hear news, and
Yeah.
and it's all good,
Siblings?
Yeah, one younger sister.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what's the age gap?
4 years.
4. So end of second grade for her to come out.
Yeah, yeah,
That
and she same problems with school. So her fun story is she went to West after me. She stepped in the minute I left, right, and she got to like the 7th or 8th. Oh, you're Forrest's sister, and the expectations it came with. And she's one of the few students ever who put themselves into the alternative school. She applied to Horizons.
Wow.
At SMSD and got in. She, majority of those kids have a criminal background or maybe a teen pregnancy or a lot of that stuff going on. She had none of those. She just didn't want to be Forrest's sister at West anymore.
Are you serious? That was it?
Yep. And she bounced, and it did allow her to graduate early and do some other interesting things. But I've always found a little comedy in that, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
She
funny.
may feel differently. But,
Yeah. So any idea how your folks met?
Yeah. It's an embarrassing age gap because it was like a skating rink type thing, and she was 15 and he was like 23.
Okay.
But my mom has a massively high EQ, your emotional intelligence, and he had a family that doesn't do feelings, and so I think emotionally they were probably the same age.
Interesting.
With that age gap. And he was military at the time. He served in non-interesting Korea, and he was just making mixtapes the whole time.
Nice.
That's all he did. I think he drove a Jeep, and so she was getting through school and becoming an adult while he was gone. So like a lot of the weirdness of that age gap was pretty minimized.
Yeah.
And they're both onto their that was a practice marriage. They're both onto their new spouses now.
Right.
but
yeah.
But yeah.
Were they were they folks that put on music to listen to in the home when you guys were little?
So my mom was there was an organization in California called the Weekend Warriors, and it was people that could play well enough, but the only time they had was like a Saturday at 5 to play like a hotel bar or something like that. And she sang her ass off. My mom was a great singer. I sang with her in the kitchen and across the house. And so I'm still kind of a karaoke hero, but that's about the only level I rise to. But some of her, I can still close my eyes and hear some of the country songs, the more poppy sided country songs from back then. And I can hear her sing them. It's crazy. She was so good,
So she's putting on the radio in the house? Is she buying CDs?
So we had those crazy big towers, but there's an early picture of me completely stark nude except for a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. We're not country people. I don't know why they were in the house.
Yeah.
But I'm like climbing one of those speakers. That's one of the embarrassed Forrest photos that the family whips out. So we had the big tower, so that would crank sometimes. But sometimes she just sing. She's in the kitchen. She's just doing the thing, or she'd be practicing for one of those gigs. And my mom's side of the family, they're all musical. That's
okay.
That's a whole thing.
And if Dad's making mixtapes, what's he into?
I remember I looked at them once because he had these huge stacked rows of all these cassettes, that would lived in the closet where the parents also hid their weed and stuff. And like Dr. Hook was apparently a major thing for him because there was a whole row of that shit. And then just everything else you'd expect from that time. So like Genesis and so that's what he was literally like sitting by the radio in Korea and doing the hit the button song ends, hit the button routine and putting together his own little tapes. And that I'll be honest, I think after he didn't need to fill time anymore, that interest went away because I don't have any memories of him like popping a tape in at home.
Interesting.
For him. Yeah.
He was just just doing something.
I think he was just killing time. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. So a little less.
That's fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about concerts? Did they take you out, or did you go
me
see
and Mom
stuff
did
with
a
your
ton of concerts. The cool thing about Sacramento is that you get the California State Fair, and the California State Fair brought out everybody, right? So like saw Weird Al
Nice.
at his peak at the California State Fair. I saw Boyz II Men, Mariah Carey, like a lot of that stuff. Then I grew up very R&B, which is a little weird because my mom was definitely more of like a Fleetwood Mac / country type person.
Yeah.
So how I landed on Boys to Men, Soul for One, All for Real, TLC, I couldn't tell you, but those were all the CDs and tapes I was playing when I was
Very
younger.
nice.
And so yeah, but that, and then we would do, I remember a Dwight Yoakam concert at the Arco Arena at one point, stuff like that. But yeah, the California State Fair is the hack, man. If you
Nice.
live in
The
Sacramento,
hack.
it's a cheat
Awesome.
code. Yeah.
Very cool. Um, let's see. So you come out to KC because Dad's work
Yep.
brings you out. FanCon and anime slash Pokemon. I came
Yeah.
across
So
those somewhere for
yeah.
you.
So from April 2013 to March 2023, I was by title, store operations manager, but really doing the role of general manager at Collector's Cash in Lenexa. It's a trading card game store that does business in the millions. And we also did trade shows. So we traveled the whole country and did conventions.
What?
Yeah.
Business in the millions for cards?
100%. 100%. Trading card game hobby behaves like alcohol. Bad economy, stuck in your house, guess what you pivot to? So just like liquor stores and bars see a big pop when the economy's down, the 2008 slump, the more recent slump, so did that business. We're also now like pretty deep into our second generation of players, right? People like me that were playing Magic the Gathering in 1995. We have kids and now they're at the level that they can totally grab these games and run with it. And so we have a lot of dad and children or full nuclear families banging away with adult money, to get involved with these games like Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, stuff like that. So it's cool. There's also been a massive board game renaissance over like the last 5 years.
Really?
Board games have exploded. Yeah,
Wow.
kind of started with Settlers of Catan, and then COVID hit, and everybody was playing board games at home.
Yeah.
And this is like, I think, pound for pound, the most board games that have ever sold ever in the history of board games is like right now. Right now, independent producers are
Take that,
killing
screen
it.
time.
Yeah, no, but it's for real.
Yeah.
Like, and so, conventions like Gen Con are seeing just insane numbers, 80,000, 90,000 people going to Indianapolis for essentially a board game convention, and all the conventions that were dying are back that involved a lot of board games and tabletop. Origins in Columbus is another great example. So, we're in a renaissance and a boom for cards, and it's really interesting. I was really conscientious when I was with Cash not to do my own drugs too much because you're a better drug dealer when you don't, And so I didn't play a lot of card games. And once you've been behind the curtain or you've opened 10,000 packs just to sort and alphabetize, the magic kind of goes away, pun intended, for the dopamine of opening those packs and hunting the thing kind of changes in your brain. So I'm not patterned in that way anymore.
Okay.
But I do enjoy the industry. I do little crazy tiny shows, and I just bring the stuff from my garage that I collected over time. And it's fun to interact with people. And that's cool. You have that,
Yeah.
And you make it, a few hundred here, maybe a couple thousand if it's a really strong show or something like that.
What was the thing? 10 plus years ago where people, it was like like I knew about Pokemon and the cards and all this stuff, but all of a sudden there were people out like looking for.
Oh yeah. So a couple things happened. One, Pokemon Go brought every last collection and binder out of every last grandma and aunt's closet, right? Because it was on the news. It was everywhere. You had kids wandering through your neighborhood like zombies playing Pokemon Go. And so we reached a point, because I was the lead buyer for the company at the low dollar level, right? There reached a point where somebody would walk in with like a Charizard Holo that today you can sell for $400, right? But it was Pokemon Go time, and at that point, that card was maybe $60, And they'd be like, "What do you guys pay on these?" And I'll be like, "Well, I bought 20 of them today, so right now I'm at $3." And people would be pissed, but they would understand because they would see the next grandma walking in right behind him. So what are they going to do? Argue, And so it was just a wild moment when that went down. But then also for the high end stuff, influencers started to get it. So Bitcoin and Pokemon cards had this weird thing that happened at the same time where every last YouTuber and every last Twitch guy got really crazy about them. And so like the Logan Pauls of the world were like, I'm chasing a first edition box of that, when he was walking out to fights, he had a Charizard in a chain around his neck. Logan Paul did when he was doing the early boxing, even though his brother's the only talent. Sorry, Logan, if you ever watched that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a period of time where the influencers just made it pop again, and it was just this perfect storm. You know,
Well, but it's like when they were doing the Pokemon Go, it's like a GPS. You're not
Yeah.
actually finding a thing that you can
no
hold,
physical thing. Yeah,
but
yeah.
you like it's like a pin.
But you had to be in a physical spot because it just tracks the neighborhood, and it knows it uses an algorithm. Like, it's going to be an attractive spot to play Pokemon Go if it's relatively safer. So parks and churches were like the first thing to show up on the map, right? We'll debate the safety of churches at a later time. And and it got people out and moving, and it was just really cool. They've continued to work on it nonstop. I mean, Niantic, who owns it, they're freaking billionaires, and it came from a game.
It's still a thing that lives and breathes.
100%. I'm actually the admin for the Pokemon Go Kansas City group, and I could check, but I think we have got between 14 and 15,000 people in that group, and active posters, probably 100 plus. And then they're hard. They post the graphic updates of this is what's coming, and this is Community Day, and this is the new Pokemon that's coming out, and there's like there's over 1,000 Pokemon now, and like half of, if not less, are in that game. So they've got so much room still to farm. I'll do it when I'm out for a long walk. I'll pop my phone open and spin a couple gyms, or knock 4 of those stupid blue Pokemon out of a gym somewhere near me, and take it over. So so I still, or when I travel, it's cool to get the postcards from weird places when you're playing Pokemon Go, when you're off at Disney or whatever. And then,
sure,
so it's just it's a fun,
wild,
yeah. But people still do it very actively, yeah.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate you being here and for sending me an awesome list. And again, for being flexible enough to move so that we can make this happen. Are you okay beverage-wise? Do you have any needs?
I'm great.
At the moment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll usually just roll through lists in chronological release order. So if we do that, we kick things off with Morning View.
Oh, yeah.
Incubus, 2001, 4th of 8 for them, 13 tracks, 58 minutes. American rock band out of Calabasas, California. Second record of theirs to make a list here on the podcast. My very limited experience with them is that they're alternative-y, sometimes hard, oftentimes intelligent in that vein that you hear folks talk about Tool and so forth.
Quasi-political, right? As political as you get in music, I guess. They got a lot of language like that. I mean, this was my late high school, early college music. We did see them at Sandstone. When it was Sandstone, it's always going to be Sandstone.
Always.
And it probably helped that at the time, like 16 or 17, as a non-drinker and non-drug user, that I had a really good contact high from that lawn. But it was just the most incredible damn concert ever. They ended on Aqueous Transmission, which is their 8-minute song that ends their album. And they ended it by removing one element at a time. So the guitar would wave and rack up his guitar, and he would slowly walk off.
Goosebumps.
And do what I do too right now, talking about it. And then they left it with basically the DJ slowly spinning the song down, and then it was just quiet, and that was the end of the show. And so it was
Aqueous.
crazy. Aqueous Transmission, yeah.
I just assumed Aqueous.
I could be awful at it.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
but really cool track. Perfect closer spot.
Yeah.
And really kind of sold the record for me because a good chunk through it. I bought Science on a cassette when it came out, and
Science is much harder.
And I was like, I kept it, but I'd never really revisited more than once or twice.
Yep.
I was kind of halfway through this listen. I was like, it sounds like Incubus.
Yeah.
And then track 11, Are You In? With some really cool vocal harmonies, and the first time that I could hear the scratches. Maybe the
DJ's super prominent in their music, and I've always loved that.
I couldn't
tell in the other
until
tracks.
1 through 10. I'm like, is this a feature? Is this So I was like, I played that one like 3 times in a row, and then let it roll to the end, and then I was like, what is this incredible closer?
Yeah.
And it really was like, dude, I like that record.
Yeah. It's great.
What's your introductory story to them?
Oh man, I mean, me and my best friend Seth have always been huge Incubus fans. I think I've seen Incubus 7 times
Nice.
now, and I'm aging with them. It's one of those things. I couldn't tell you the first time I heard it. One of my core memories, I had a really bad breakup in high school. We all did, right? She cheated. We won't use names, but you know who you are.
No.
And I got home and I was just in grief, I'd had a good cry with my biology teacher. He had a bad breakup at the same time, and some other teacher knew, and they were like, "Go talk to him." And we did. We sat there and bitched about it. But I got home and I was gathering up all the her stuff because obviously there's going to be a bonfire in the driveway now. And when I left, it was the song that was playing was "Nice to Know You, Goodbye," right? And when I walked back in, that playlist was still running on my old school CRT computer, and the song that was playing was the one about how you burn up with ideas, and so it was ironic that it literally played the soundtrack to my little sad moment there. But yeah, I mean, I've caught him in concert every time I get a chance. Brandon Boyd is a golden god. He's one of those I'm not gay but type singers,
Yeah.
And just the way his voice has stayed over the years and how his range got a little better and his lungs got a little better. It's just not typical.
So, if my math is correct, 7 others for them. Why is this one special?
That concert, I don't know. There's no other way to say that. Like you said, goosebumps. Like I still remember the elements leaving the song and how it changed the song, but it didn't.
Were there other acts on the bill for that show?
I don't know who opened for him.
Okay.
I've seen the best opener I've seen with Incubus was definitely Deftones.
Okay.
Which was not that long ago. That was Starlight, like 4 or 5 years back.
Okay.
A buddy of mine got stuck on the Deftones tour bus as they were leaving town and didn't realize they had to drop him off 2 hours outside, and we had to go get him. But yeah, it's always a great show, but it's never reached the level of Sandstone 2003.
Cool. It's always been a great venue.
Yeah.
It's not just down the street. Mm-hmm. You got to get out there, and this has come up. I've been seeing shows out there since '89. And at some point, that's buddy's dropping you out, buddy's mom's dropping you off, or you're going with the parent or whatever, and then you cross that threshold to where you're driving. And we were, if you've been there enough, it's not, too tough, but there's a good, healthy collection of folks that entered adolescence, and that was a destination spot with, maps and quarters in case you got to find a payphone.
That's so funny.
And now it's just and
now it's just go over there by Renfest and your GPS and you're there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You got to admit though, there's like a 20-year group of people that absolutely refuse it to call it by any of its new names. And they've been like that the whole time. It's Sandstone to an entire 2 decades of people. So like young people are like, I'm headed to Azura. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Go away. Yeah. And it's just wild that we're so committed to it. It's just a venue. There's nothing, they didn't serve special drinks. It wasn't better beer. It's just environmentally, it's great.
It's a cool venue. Lots of folks have seen lots of good shows there. Mm-hmm. Its original name is very cool. Yeah. And in addition to just being cool on its own, predates naming rights type thing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's what Cricket Wireless, and I don't even remember Azura, a couple other things.
M3 Financial, like it's just been a little. It changes Sandstone. Every couple of years now. Yeah, Sandstone. Yeah. Before we hop bands or albums, the most uncomfortable concert I've ever been to was also Sandstone. It was Weezer opening for Blink 182.
Oh wow!
It was 4 days after DJ AM died. And Blink 182 was about to break up. They lasted for like 3 more days after that show. They were literally cussing at each other on stage in between songs. Oh yeah, Blink was on one that night, and it was just so Weezer was fine. Weezer just sounds like its album. They went up there, they did their thing, they beeped, they bopped. Yeah, they're gone, right? But Blink was like, there were these uncomfortable downtimes between every song. They were cutting some songs early, like just setting guitars down, frustration, how they grabbed a water bottle. Everything about that show was dark. So just a weird moment in Sandstone history, but I think it was their last big show before they took a break for a while.
I wonder if they had others scheduled and had to bail on them.
They did have some tour left, so it was just crazy. And I remember it was one of those shows where everybody's just glancing sideways at everybody else to make sure they're still on this earth.
Is it me?
Like, yeah. Like, is this real? Has this happened? You want me to pinch you? You pinch me?
Yeah.
It was so weird, but yeah, that's a fun Sandstone memory too.
Yeah. Well, in jumping, you came in representing, and we moved to 2005 with Commit This to Memory, Motion City soundtrack. Yeah. Let's see here. Second of 6, 12 tracks, 39 minutes. California rock to Minnesota rock. Second of theirs to make a list. Pop punk or emo. What's special about Motion City
Yeah, so
soundtrack?
I'm not an emo music listener. This was not a band if you knew Forrest at that time that you would expect me to be really hype on. It's two things. It's their self defacing in a hilarious way. They talk openly about mental health and medication and substance abuse.
Really?
So while I was partying my ass off in college, and
So
ironically,
you have partied?
yes,
Okay.
oh, absolutely.
I was
Well,
like, did this 37-year-old
Oh, no,
with
no.
zero alcohol and THC in his blood? Like,
no.
is that a real
we were,
thing?
We were drinking in college.
Okay.
We were reinventing acid reflux in college. We had revolutionized it. But my mom was going through a sobriety adventure while I was going through my leaving sobriety adventure and entering college, and we both loved this album. So and
wow.
she chose really interesting songs. She changed musically as she got older, so she was obsessed with Linkin Park in particular. She found a bunch of sobriety anthems inside of Linkin Park music.
No kidding.
And me and her did see Linkin Park and Atreyu together at Sandstone, so that was a cool show.
Atreyu?
Yeah, that was an interesting opener. She wasn't ready for that. She had no idea who they were.
You know,
But
you know the namesake though, right?
the Never-Ending Story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a dark moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen them on Etsy, but they make little things you could put in the bottom of your plants, and it's him trying to pull the horse out of your planter.
Artec?
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Swamps of-
It's pretty bad.
I lost him in the swamps of sadness. That was I was like all in, sold, in love as a little for that movie, and then the Gomorrah or whatever that.
Yeah.
I was like,
Just kept getting
turn
darker.
this off. What
kept
the
getting darker
Yeah,
and
yeah,
darker. Squirrel. Anyways, so like LG Fuad, let's get fucked up and die. There's no music behind him, and he just opens that song. I remember hearing that, and I was like, well, you have my attention now.
Yeah.
And
Had
then he
mine
goes,
too.
Yeah, and then he goes, I am speaking figuratively, of course. And you're like, oh, you fucking son of a bitch, you
Right,
got me.
right.
And like all their music was fun like that. They have some of the best breakup songs, I feel like. The Hold Me Down, 2 albums later, there was a really great breakup song from them as well. And so you always need one of those in your back pocket because, Lord knows I had commitment issues for like a decade. But this was like our beer pong music. Like this was what we
Really?
stood, yeah, this is what we stood in the front kitchen at Sigma Phi Epsilon at Washburn University and just banged down plastic cups.
Is that
while
Topeka?
blasting this. Yeah.
Okay. So you know their catalog then.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And this one gets the nod because
It was the one. Like LG Fuad is just the song of all time for them. I've got other favorites, but it's like 3 spots above number 2 somehow. It's just great. And there's just so many things you can relate to when you're in college and when I was that age, goddamn the liquor store's closed. We were so close to scoring. It hurts, it destroys till it kills. And it's like you're so over dramatic when you're that age still. And like
Right.
you are always showing up to the liquor store 10 minutes after it closed.
Yes.
And it's like, fuck, we didn't plan well enough for tonight.
Yeah.
And so you just felt, I really felt that around that age, and it's pretty entertaining.
Nice.
Yeah.
so a 6-year leap to 2011 with Childish Gambino.
Oh yeah.
First of 6, 13 tracks, 56 minutes. Stage name for Donald Glover Jr., who's an actor, comedian, rapper, singer, writer, director, producer out of California, who grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia, which I've had. Casey's kind of always been my hub.
Yeah.
But born in South Carolina, Casey actually suburb of Atlanta, which was 5 minutes from Stone Mountain, back to KC, Colorado for a while. But Stone Mountain, from ages 7 to 10, was the thing to do in the summer was to go to Stone Mountain and watch the Laser Light show in the early 80s. And it was I was geeked out about that because I was bummed to leave KC because the Comets had just come online and they were the the hype pregame. I mean, that was otherworld with the chaser, the song, dun, 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 and the laser show and the fog.
Yeah.
It was wild. So anyway, and it's like, but and I've written about this, but as a young person, being like, this is so cool. And there was a cable car you could ride to the top. I mean, this is a very large, but it's like this whole thing.
Yeah.
All of it, its existence, the massiveness, the people, the things that you learn. We're talking about the guys that lost the Civil War, right? You know, and then I was gone from there. I was like, oh, I used to live by Stone Mountain, and now it's like, dude, that's wild.
It's cool. Well, it's crazy. Donald's definitely one of those people that's connected to the whole Atlanta is the new Hollywood trend.
Yes.
You know, Donald Glover is quite simply a person that the world does not deserve. Like the definition of a Renaissance man.
I
Coming
feel like
coming up through comedy, and then all of a sudden, what do you mean you have 6 albums? What do
Okay.
you mean you're booking these
Okay.
huge movies?
There we go.
Yeah.
I mean, I just read a bunch of his,
Yeah.
but I see your list. Child's I know that, but I don't know how. And then I was like, wait a minute, I feel like I know his actual name, and it's because he's been in shit.
Oh man, everything. He's the new Lando. How do you step into the shoes of Billy D. Williams with that much fucking swag? I don't know, but he did it.
Scarf collection,
Yeah.
or capes. Was it cape? It was
The capes. Well, both. He does the red scarf. He does the capes. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
he was slick.
Oh, man.
I loved. You know, I still don't have much luck. Trying to my kids, they've seen all the Star Wars stuff.
Oh.
We're right now we're in a pocket where I got to talk them out of a Star Wars movie on movie night.
That's good.
Because I'm like, dude.
Just watch Rogue One again. It's the
So
best one.
that's where I'm going with this. Rogue One's the best one,
Yep.
and also Solo. But it's always, you know, we just whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, fascinating film when it came out. Loved him. Was really upset that the gal that ended up going, but the thing that kept me invested, I was like, I love this Lando character.
And no, he was so perfect for that. And I mean, he wrote and produced and also was constantly in Atlanta. You know, his show that he did for
Yeah, I
television.
haven't watched that.
Oh man, it's killer. It's
I've
just
heard.
so good. Yeah. And the dude, there's nothing he can't do. And he also, you can tell he can't quit because he's stopped being Childish Gambino like twice, and he'll be in Kansas City with a concert like in not too long. You know, we've been debating getting tickets for it, but yeah, I mean he's crazy, and this album just like, you know, it was after he had really been doing more mixtape, and he was still maybe leaning on his comedy too much. When he was doing his early music, you know, because that's what he's from. You know, you're old enough to know collegehumor.com and some of the early internet, right? And his group Derek Comedy like spawned all these stars that we don't think about, that they were just dumb college kids.
College Humor, if I'm not mistaken, was sort of the birth, like the renaissance for cool tees.
Yeah.
And the two that they had a real cute girl who was nicely put together, and the two big ones that I think kind of springboarded them were I'm Kind of a Big Deal, and then the other one was Your Mom Goes to College.
Yeah. And then later the Chive kind of took over that spot, you know. From that. But College Humor carried all these videos like an early YouTube, and they weren't afraid of longer formats like other websites were. So like when Donald was in those skits, sometimes they were like 6-7 minute skits, which on the internet just didn't exist at the time.
Right.
And so do yourself a favor. They're all on YouTube. Go look up Derek Derrick comedy. They're all ripped from College Humor. They're all super inappropriate and would never fly today in any sketch format. But you know, the sketch Blowjob Girl, she then goes on to The Office, and then Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. You know, he literally has a 7-minute joke video about him taking advantage of other bros in college and how he can't stop doing it. And they do it in the style of To Catch a Predator. You know, so just completely inappropriate.
Wow.
But it's Donald Glover's like humping dudes on dorm beds, and that's where he's, and now he's Lando. You know, and it's like, whoa, you know, and making this crazy music. You know, This Is America took over the psyche for a minute when that music video hit, you know, of him in, you know, shirtless and in Confederate pants, you know, and the opening scene is him executing another, you know, colored person playing the guitar. Jeez. And then talking about the Black American experience for the next 3 minutes. And the music video has everything. And like, you could watch it 10 times and catch something new, or 1,000,000 times and catch something new. So Donald's not messing around. Like he likes his art.
This was his debut. I don't want to say hooked, but I was tuned in like right out of the gate, and I was like, this immediately has a lot of elements that I like. There's good beats, there's good sound. He's being real AF, with his lyrics, talking about like real stuff. But it also, and I didn't, I might have known that it was his first by the time I was listening, but it also felt a little unpolished.
Sure.
And so my takeaway from it was I'm really curious to see where he has gone in records 2 through 6. Does he seem
Oh man,
more mature?
Well, and he moved almost away from what a lot of people would call hip hop and moved kind of just into rhythm and blues. He moved into R&B late in that
Really?
process. Yeah. And so you'll find that there's a whole different flavor of, his concerts went from flashy lights, ironic lyrics, to like just a blue mood light and him crooning. It really, his music style
Whoa.
changed massively as he went through his process there too, which is really cool. So as you continue to play with that discography, get ready for a real a change.
The other 5 records?
I know. So
or a couple of them.
I've got 2 or 3 songs from all of them.
Okay.
That are in will rotate in playlists, but I can't say I've front to back listened to like his latest 2. I need to.
Okay,
need to,
but 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
how do they stack up?
So Firefly and Bonfire on this album are pretty top tier, but Heartbeat, track number 6, is like my karaoke go-to. And I got to be careful because there's 3 N-bombs in it, right? So I have to self-edit when I do it because I really get into character when I do that one. But Heartbeat's cool because the beat behind the track is the same as the human heartbeat, which is wild. So if you listen to it again, you'll love that.
Okay.
And he goes from pretty rapid rap to R&B singing on the hook, and it's all him. So I know what your boys like. Skinny tie and the club type. He go and make breakfast. You walk around naked. The whole song is about this woman who he's been with on and off forever, and they've cheated on most of their partners together. But when they get together, it's just the single heartbeat, And he goes into the chorus, and it's, I wanted you to know that I'm ready to go. Heartbeat. My heartbeat. And even his hook he sets up so that when the heartbeat hits behind him, it's in that pause.
Oh, wow.
Heartbeat, boom, my heart. And it's like, oh, this is a really well-constructed
Cool.
song.
Very cool.
So that song is just like lives rent-free in my head all the
Nice.
time. It'll pop in 24/7.
Yeah.
So that he just does unique stuff like that. It's crazy.
I love it.
And then some songs he's just bitching, and that's fine. That's what he wanted to do, So it's pretty cool.
Well, last but not least, Watsky,
Yeah.
2016, 4th of 7, 17 tracks, 65 minutes. Rapper, singer, songwriter, record producer, poet, author, illustrator out of San Fran. A lot of Golden State love for coming off of your list.
It's all accidental. I mean, it's just the music that catches me,
4 years ago, Guinness Book of World Records for
longest freestyle rap, 33 hours and some change.
Yeah.
I watched about 20 hours of it.
Well, you did?
Yeah, I donated 3 times too. He did it because A, he wanted to, but B, it was COVID and he had promised to tour to all of his bandmates and his crew and they had to cancel. So instead of just saying tough shit, guys, he decided to break a Guinness World Record, run a fundraiser, and pay them what they would have made on tour. He didn't make anything, but everyone that usually travels with him got paid.
Wow.
Pretty fucking
That's
cool.
dope.
Yeah, yeah.
This record is wild and varied and impressive and pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I just have a note, track 12, Going Down, is something that totally caught me off guard lyrically, but I mean...
Going Down, the music video premiered not on YouTube, where most of them do now, but Pornhub.
Get out of here.
Dead serious.
Wow.
You couldn't catch it on YouTube. The edited version you couldn't catch on YouTube for like a couple months. You had to go to Pornhub if you wanted to watch the music video because it's just the song's just about oral sex the whole way through.
Yeah.
But he makes it art somehow.
Yeah.
And the music video is the same way. It's a lot of curves of the body and there's a nipple type stuff. But there's a lot of visual jokes and imagery that run through the whole song. And watch the music video too. So
well, and pretty run of the mill. Through the first 2/3 of that song in terms of straight white male, and then the final third, he's challenging, I guess, your average bro, for lack of a better term, to just sit with those words, sit with those ideas, and
And he's asking himself the question too.
Yeah.
It's like, if the opportunity was appropriate, would I do it? Because the lyric is like, at this point, I'm not ruling out that at some point I might have a ding-a-ling in my mouth.
Yeah.
And then the other lyric when he talks about potentially giving another man some head that really hits is, maybe I could suck a flashlight so my soul will not be dark.
Yes.
Which is a crazy lyric. Like, who sits down and writes that when they're in that headspace?
Well, I was at first, so when we hit that track, I was like, that's a pretty interesting song title, and then maybe the whole first verse happened, and I was probably taking notes or multitasking or something, and then something like right around verse 2, I was like, what are we talking about here? And I started listening. I'm like, okay, sort of like Blink 182. Is this really happening? And so then I pull up the lyrics. I was like, golly,
that's really happening. Yeah.
But I sent it to my buddy Ethan, who's been on a couple episodes and is just in my world he's the hip hop head. Like has a room of vinyl that he's been since and now his boy has his own collection. He knows more than I'll ever forget about hip hop and rap, and I sent him this record and I kind of and he just a little while later, really good. And I was like, God damn. Okay, so I'm not crazy. This is a great record.
So Watsky I saw a graph once of the vocabulary. If you took every popular, known, or long-term, successful rapper, who's used the most different words. So that was the data question, right? And the people you expect are really high on the charts. Eminem has some crazy high vocabulary. People that are super popular and super super rich behind the Eminem, way down in vocabulary. Their concepts and their themes haven't changed enough. They like their words, and so they're right here. Watsky's like 2 back. I think it's like MF Doom, and like Watsky. I'd have to go back and find the graph, but it's crazy. The dude came up in. He toured with Def Jam Poetry and Russell Simmons as a 16-year-old white kid.
Russell Simmons produced this record, I think, or had a part in it.
They've always orbited each other, which is really wicked cool. But he was just doing comedy slam poetry in a room he didn't belong in. This is George Watsky.
No. But Russell, this is the same dude that was like Def Jam comedy in the 80s.
Yeah.
And
Def Jam Productions, Def Jam. Yeah. Okay. So he toured with exclusively black poets except for him, and doing stuff like V is for Virgin, about how he couldn't get laid in high school, and he was killing rooms doing that slam. And so he's a smart guy. And his story's crazy. We're the exact same age, which is really cool. We're like weeks apart, and so our experiences has had some fun parallels and stuff like that. Watsky's the reason I'm with the partner I'm with now. I made the royal mistake of dating my best friend's wife's best friend for 2.5 years, and then so that was ending at the same time that Danielle, my partner now, was going through a divorce in Hutchinson, Kansas, and working for an awful dude. And so she's trying to get out of it with her ex-wife, and we were just commiserating in a Watsky fan group on Facebook. I had no idea I was on Danielle's menu. I was under the impression that women were the only option for her. And so we spent about 6 weeks commiserating, and then I threw a really passive-aggressive party at my house because when my ex left, she took pretty much everything. I had a bed, a box spring, and a beanbag chair in my office, and that's it. And so I had a sit anywhere you'd like themed party and invited all of our common friends. And you had to bring your own chair because I don't got shit, And so it was a blast. And Danielle came up for it, and that was the kind of the beginning of that.
Now, are you still best friends with that best friend?
Yes.
And his
he
wife?
We're still working it out. But that happened pre-COVID, and so we didn't have a ton of time together. He was teaching at Florida Atlantic University, so they lived in Boca Raton. So I was seeing them twice a year.
Gotcha.
But now he lives here, and he moved back to take the job at UMKC as the head of criminal justice and criminology.
Oh, cool.
He's a pretty established author on a lot of criminal justice topics at this point, and works a ton of data. He's got a grant with the KCPD right now, and he's working with them.
Wow.
So yeah, they're back, but But yeah,
That was the beginning of your
that
relationship with Danielle.
yeah, that's what started things with Danielle, and it's been every concert since, and I've missed one Watsky tour ever. I was living in New Mexico, and he came nowhere near it.
Where?
I was in Farmington.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was spending a lot of time in Lawrence as a
Yep.
high schooler,
Yep.
and partying, and I was like, man, I just am terrified to go. I want to be a Jayhawk so bad, but I'm only going to party more,
Yeah.
which kind of gets in the way of school. So I was like, I'm going to go to Pittsburgh State. So I did that, and
Okay.
it was whatever. But then I went out to Estes Park and took a year and decided I moved all my. I'm going to KU.
Yep.
Like I don't want to be whatever. And then as summer was nearing its end, I was like, why am I going back to Kansas? So I didn't. I took a year off, got established residency, and ended up choosing Fort Lewis College down in Durango,
Yeah.
which is
Durango is where you go to party if you're in Farmington, because Farmington's awful.
Yeah,
It's not. It's not. I do crack the joke that I think it's the only town that almost got me to be racist. Like, you have Navajo reservation on 3 sides, and you have oil field workers from out of town on the 4th side. So that town is
it's not
rough.
snazzy.
It is not snazzy, but there's a ton of population, and there is still some money out there. Like, I was running the largest entertainment store in Farmington, the Hastings. I don't know if anybody remembers that chain. Books, movies, music. We
Yeah.
still did rental.
Yeah.
So I was their move and flip GM at the time. So I was moving every 3 months and traveling the whole country trying to save stores. And they finally gave me Farmington, which was referred to as the Beast. It did like $6 million a year out of that location. But I also called the cops twice a day on the weekends because it was so rough out there.
Wow.
Like, I never first name basis with every single FPD officer, and just it was crazy. So I learned a lot.
Durango's where you're going to party.
Durango's where I went to party. Yeah.
Farmington's where we're going if we didn't plan accordingly and get booze for Sunday.
Oh,
because you
yeah.
couldn't buy in
Yeah,
Colorado
across the
on
line.
Sunday. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's too funny. That's too
Planning and young people.
Yeah, it's that Motion City lyric again.
yeah,
Goddamn,
yeah.
the liquor store's closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Xfinity. It's so hard to choose for Watsky because I followed him since Def Jam. I was 16 when I found him. He was 16, and so we've had a long distance relationship.
Cool.
Which is pretty real. We actually drove to Denver last year. Danielle's car broke down in Salina, and there's no flights, no rentals, and no one to fix your car on a Saturday if you're in Salina, Kansas. So I bought a car because I wasn't going to miss a VIP meetup with Watsky.
Wow.
Yeah, I
That's a flex.
bought a 2017 Nissan Rogue, and we got the rest of the way to goddamn Denver. So that I told him that story. He had a good laugh.
Yeah, you've met him?
So yeah, he does. He's really great about hanging out after the shows and getting every last handshake and hug out of the way.
Dang.
He's just an incredible dude. Even when he's sick or when he's completely exhausted because of where he's at on tour. But yeah, and my buddy Alex, who passed away recently, opened for him his second tour at the Grenasty in Lawrence.
Okay.
He opened for him out there. So I got to hang out after the show and talk until we were all for like 3 hours.
Nice.
Really great dude.
Do you still have that Nissan?
Yeah.
Wow, really?
I just bought it last year. Yeah, I'm lucky that I own a portion of a paintless dent repair, a dent business, and
Okay.
so that we have creative ways to move money around to make things like that easy when you need to buy a car on short
There you
notice.
go.
So that helped a lot. But it is a funny story. Hey man, I wasn't gonna miss the meet and greet, so I bought a car. The 22-year-old car salesman I told that to looked at me like I was about to prank him. Like he kept asking questions to verify the veracity of that claim, and I was like, it's true, man. We're going to leave her car here, by the way, so you're welcome. We'll be back for it after this weekend.
We'll have it towed. Don't you have it
don't
towed.
touch it. Don't touch it. It was really funny. Yeah, going down sticks out because of the absurdity of it.
Right.
But if you're going to have a musical experience,
Yes.
the Lovely Things suite,
Oh, man,
portion.
I'm so glad you said that. I meant to put that in my notes and I didn't.
it's insane. I mean, it starts with an out-of-nowhere narrative about a failing German piano composer. In
Is that Knots?
that's the Knots.
Okay.
And his attempted suicide as the debtors are banging at the door. And it's like you're watching the movie Amadeus. You're like, why am I listening to this narrative? There's got to be a reason because Watsky's a mad scientist, right? And then it goes into Roses, which is about Watsky's relationship with his father. Which is a theme he touches a lot. I've noticed Dad's been moving slower every time we go play catch. But when he's gone, things will still be the same. I carry his name. The sound of our sneeze is the same. Like he has a lot of lyrics about him and his father and mortality. And he's processing that through this. So his father was a huge concert piano fan and would play tapes of piano music and quiz Watsky on it when he was a young child in the car.
Jeez.
And so he tells the story about his father sitting on the side of the stage when this same composer who survived his suicide attempt by rope, which is Knotts, played for one of his last shows ever as an old man. And he had to sit on the side of the stage because it was sold out at that San Francisco theater. So they just plopped his dad in the wings. And then he goes on to close out the dad and mortality thing with the suite. So that's what the 3-part song is. And it follows through the whole way.
Are there only 3? I thought there were 4.
There's one of them's more of like a quick intro, quick bite. It's like really, it's tiny short.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
But it really is a 3-part series, and he's done a lot of cool graphic stuff with that too.
Oh yeah.
And some of the use of piano in a rap song, like he describes how the guy plays the piano when he's at it well. And there's things that happen with the piano when he says he strikes the F like a knife through the heart, and you hear the striking of an F on the piano, and just stuff like that, little moments like that in that song really get you. And the way they move up and down the piano rapidly when the guy's really getting worked up to try and hang himself, the panic and the desperation that happens on the piano is in concert with the imagery. So he does some crazy stuff in the Lovely Things suite. And then everything else on this album, just everything's got a crazy quotable, Yeah. In
the department of admirable qualities, sounds, beats, lyrics, there was a lot of similarity for me. One listen in with this record and the Childish Gambino record. Mm-hmm. However, this one felt way more polished.
And he'll sneak things by you. So Donald, at the end of the day, is a comedy performer. He's going to land a punchline.
I see.
Right? Watsky, at the end of the day, is a poet, and he might run by you at rapid speed with something that just hits you way later.
Right.
Just like when you're reading a poem and you come back and you're like, I completely missed this stanza. Some of my favorite things ever written, fuck lyrics, favorite things ever written are things that Watsky does casually in songs that are not serious. He has a song about post-divorce chasing down MILFs at like a divorcee convention, and how he's always liked older women.
Wait, where do those happen? I
know, right? Yeah, but it's called Mrs. Robinson. Here's to you, Mrs. Robinson, and it's the hook, and he's just talking about banging MILFs. But there's in the middle of that song, what is the lyric? It's so crazy. When you're staring in the mirror and only see the years you fear appearing in your face instead of Helen Mirren, then it's clear. You look hella nice, a younger fella's vice. And a sugar for the cougars, I was on Ellen twice.
Bars.
So like just crazy.
Wow.
But like the whole intro, when you're staring in the mirror and only see the years you fear appearing in your face instead of Helen Mirren, then it's clear. It's like, whoo,
Lots to unpack.
a lot. And then he's got a song called Never Let It Die that's just really charming kids in the background, which is a common thing in hip hop a lot now, and he is talking about Cupid making fall in love with stupid people, and it's when Cupid hit me with his burning arrow, it lit the lava in my churning marrow. And when you're embarrassed, just start to be impressed. Remember that little ember resting left of center in your chest, like all this magma running through your body imagery. And he just does, I had a friend that's also a Watsky fan and a painter do a painting of him looking up at a volcano erupting with the lyrics being the lava coming down the side, and she nailed it. It's gorgeous. I paid her like 300. I should have paid her 1,000. Him lyrically, it's just untouchable for me. But I'm also a nerdy white kid, so other people may have different preferences.
Heard that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. That was a really fun list, and 4 fun listens for me. I usually wrap with a set of goofy questions, and then we'll get you out of here.
Let's do it.
So the first one is you get to have lunch with anyone of your choosing, dead or alive. Who are you choosing, and why?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately, because of our political situation in America, about because we don't have what we need to help us right now. Like, which historical president would put us right back on the track, or like would fix things for us? And he's an interesting person from start to finish anyway. I think he's got one of the best bios of any American president, but I would love to throw down on some fat steaks with Teddy Roosevelt.
Interesting.
Born asthmatic to the point that his parents had to put him in the carriage to force the air into his lungs. By the time he got to Harvard, he was a professional boxer. He got shot in the middle of a speech and finished the speech. He's on paper, he's a Republican, but he was one of our best foreign policy presidents we ever had. He started the national park system.
But Right.
Well, the party's flipped. Yeah.
There you go.
Good luck trying to explain that to some of my friends. But
Uh-huh.
political science degree. But
Nice.
yeah, Teddy, the national park system, his trust breaking, he broke up big oil like 3 times during the
No
course
kidding?
of his political career. Yeah.
Wow.
And so the breaking up of monopolies is a huge legacy for Teddy. But he also did it with enough grit and relatability that all of America loved him. Like he could still go shoot at brown people on an island somewhere. He's very divisive in a way that might bring people together right now. And because I'll take a monopoly breakup if it means you're just into big game hunting. Like, please,
Right.
let's do that.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, elephant. We have problems to fix.
Yeah.
And so I think I'd like to hear.
That's a
him talk
fantastic answer.
right
And
now. Yeah.
I'm upset right now because I just watched something or read something. I wish I could say what it was. I'm pretty sure it was an interview. But whoever it was, they were talking about their obsession with FDR.
Sure.
And listen, just a quick bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit. Yeah, well, there is
But
a lot.
FDR is not going to get the "Don't Tread on Me" crowd.
Right,
And
no.
Teddy has a chance.
Yes.
And so that's who we need.
Yes,
That's my
yes.
theory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you an iOS or an Android person?
I'm an Android person.
You're an Android
Yeah,
person.
Yeah.
Okay. We have to skip that question.
I mean, I can make fun of Apple if you want to set up
well,
the question differently.
So the question instead is, what is your stance on liking your own social media posts?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I do it, but not in the way you would think, because I'm behind multiple business or nonprofit accounts on things like Facebook and Instagram, but I also have personal accounts.
Yeah.
So I'm the first tacky bastard that will post on the Tyler's House Instagram, like, looks like those kids are having a great time under my name, or I was so glad to find this person or so and so on my,
I do that too.
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
that too. But what I mean is,
It's
pretend
your account.
it's
You like your own post.
Picture of you and Watsky backstage.
Sure.
You took a selfie.
Yep.
You post it.
Yep.
And then you
like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fine. Masturbation is healthy. I think every time I've done it, it's been by accident, and I don't say that to CYA or anything.
And I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not asking you because I saw you do it.
No,
It's a
no.
question that I roll out.
No, I don't. It's fine. Pat yourself on the back. People are mean.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I like that answer.
Yeah.
So just for the sake of curiosity, if somebody does say iOS,
Mm-hmm.
the question is, what is your opinion on having red receipts?
Oh, sure.
On or off.
Oh, sure.
So,
yeah.
okay. Given the opportunity to visit your past self at any age you're choosing,
Oof.
what age are you choosing and what are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about that struggle with school. When you're a kid who tested at like a 14th grade reading level in 3rd grade, and you've been done with your work 20 minutes before the rest of the class, your whole school life growing up in California, and the only thing that saved your sanity at that point was the Oregon Trail, at the side of the classroom, to relate it to my COVID struggle, which was anxiety. I was days away from a tight white coat because my anxiety was so elevated. The lack of sleep was so bad.
During,
I was
like,
clinical.
lockdown?
Yeah, during lockdown. I was full on clinical. And then I found When Panic Attacks by David Burns, which is a beautiful book about cognitive behavioral therapy.
David Byrne?
David Burns, yeah.
Oh,
When
Burns.
Panic Attacks,
Okay.
yeah. It's literally a workbook. It looks like it's just going to be a self-help, but you open it up and he's got pages where you're supposed to journal and you're supposed to answer questions. So he gets you to talk to yourself in a really cool way. And then he tells you stories about patients he's pulled out of these downward cycles, right? And so like it's the type of book where you read it, you're crying from relief because you feel like it's going to help you and that there is hope and a light at the end of the tunnel. So I mentioned that because many times in school, I did not feel maybe like there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And I felt like the system was jacked and hopeless. And like I was spending all of my time just trying to destroy my teachers' psyches because I was so bored in school. And I look back now and I'm like, God, what a prick. Like some of the things and the pranks and the jokes and because I was the class clown. You grow up the chubby kid, you have two choices you can make. You can control the classroom or you can let the classroom control you. And I chose the prior, right? And so I was a nightmare for teachers for like 5 years. I mean, it really didn't stop till 9th, 10th grade.
How much, when that's happening,
Mm-hmm.
how much, and I know you have to hindsight it, but was mental health being talked about In
At that age,
yeah,
God no. I mean, again,
right?
I'm blessed, and I use that word almost never because I hate that word. But
Noted.
I am blessed with a mom whose EQ is so high. It's like she's known the right thing to say my whole life, right? And so while there's times I definitely should have had a mental health professional involved, I kind of had one at home. She just didn't know it, and I
Right.
didn't know it.
Right.
So there.
Shouts out to mom.
Shouts out to mom. Yeah, Mary Lou. Uh, I staged a walkout of my fourth grade classroom because she made us stand in the sun too long because we were talking in line, and I walked home. And the school called and said, Mrs. Saucier, your son can't just up and leave school. We're going to have to suspend him for 2 days. And
Jeez.
her response was, and I told her what my protest was and what my reasoning was when I got home. I didn't lie to her about why I was home. And so her response on the phone is, let me get this straight. He left school early, and your response is to give him 2 more days off of school. And they go, well, yeah, I guess. And she goes, okay, thank you, and hung up on the school. Because, if you had a reason, if you were at least processing like an adult, she was going to let you ride. And so, yeah, that she was my mental health professional all the way up until my 30s when I finally got one. That is to say, I would go back to some of the darker moments or the most frustrating moments in school with just successive suspensions, and the teachers really would have put a bullet in me if they had a legal way to do it. And I would tell that kid, like, hey, one day you actually figure this all out and it's really fucking cool. Like, you have a great ride for the rest of school. Because that would have been a life changer back then.
Cool.
So that's what I would do.
Right on. I
Yeah.
love that. If we can pretend or imagine that everybody has a professional and a personal bucket list.
Sure.
Let's say you're given all of the necessary resources to hammer out your number one on both sides.
Oof.
What are they?
So I have been severely neglecting a trip to Japan for me. And I have it built in my head. I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly how much time I'm spending in each place, but it's like 3 weeks where nobody's allowed to contact me. It's for me, and I'm just going to be lost.
Are you talking a mix of rural and urban?
Yeah. And I worked on the language.
Bro.
I worked on the language throughout COVID, so I can speak it like a toddler that's
What?
been hit in the head once.
Seriously?
Yeah. So I can, if I go to a restaurant, I can also sumiwanan desu ka. What do you recommend that I eat here? And I can find every bathroom, and I can say dollar amounts and times. And so I'm good in that way, because once you get to the countryside, it gets sketchy. People are fleeing the countryside for the cities in Japan.
What?
You can get an empty house for like 10,000 USD in the countryside in Japan, as long as you promise to live there for 2 years, because all the young people are moving to the cities and they won't move back to their parents and their grandparents' homes. They won't go back to the country.
Why?
So it's just the way they live
they wanna be
life now.
urban?
Yeah, and because they didn't address that problem for so long that there's almost no community left to go back to. There are just ghost villages that are perfectly functional modern houses. They've got electricity. They got stuff. People just don't want to live there. They don't want to take the bus an hour into town. So that's an interesting phenomenon that you can Google, is the empty houses that sit all over Japan that are available. Very few are available to gaijin, foreigners. But there's a couple towns now that have said out loud, okay, we give up.
Foreigners too.
As long as you'll stay for 2 years, the tax office will sell you this house for like 10K. Congrats, come get one. And people are doing it, and there's cool YouTube channels. Anyways, I'm off on one. Yeah, the trip to Japan is like spiritual for me. I need to do it. It's just a place I feel I should be and explore. Even though I'll be a bull in a china shop socially, I'm sure, and so that's the bucket on the personal side. Professional side's a great question. I got this political science degree, and they taught me so well that by the time I got done with it, I knew that I really didn't want to work in politics. Because if you really study the stats, it's disheartening. And if you really have experiences on campaigns, and I ran phone banks for Kerry and Obama on the Missouri side, and I also worked in the offices of like progressive young Republicans at the state house in Kansas. And so I saw a little bit of everything and knew that like, this is miserable. I don't know how people live like this and travel for this. But now I've come full circle and went from high volume competitive retail, cutthroat every last cent, to nonprofit work. And I'm creeping my way back, because now I work for the Northeast Johnson County Chamber of Commerce doing programs and events. And so I'm calling mayor's offices like every other day to make sure they're on the schedule, and I have to put together a state of the cities where every single mayor in the 10 cities will be.
You said Washburn?
Yeah. I did 2 years Washburn, 2 years Pitt State. So I did do Pitt State like you did. Yeah.
Where'd you start?
as far as
Which school are you at
oh,
first?
Washburn 2 years,
So you've
Pitt
graduated
State
from
2 years.
State?
Yeah,
Or, nice.
yeah, and while at Pitt State, I was the voice of Gorilla Vision, or not the voice of, the face of. I did the live broadcast news while I was there,
No
Gorilla
kidding?
Vision. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was IFC president, so I sat over all the fraternities, which was great because when I switched from Washburn to Pitt State, I did not fit in very well.
I was a SIG up at Pitt State.
You were a SIG up. I was a SIG up at Pitt State.
First pinned
Oh, no
of my
shit.
class, and then they took that shit back.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah.
So I went from a highly academic and community service focused house. We still partied. I still made a lot of mistakes with women, but mutual mistakes, to be clear.
Yeah.
Going from that environment of like 3,000 hours of community service and the 35 of us having like a 3.5, 3.7 GPA some semesters to Pitt State SIG up, culture shock. And when I did simple things like present legislation that said we can't just have new members clean the house, all of us need to do it, because we're not pledging anymore. This is not a hazing, rushing environment anymore. We're supposed to be balanced men. I lost friends. I mean, straight up, people would not have a drink with me anymore. It was over. It was an interesting experience. I'm glad I was IFC because I made really amazing lifelong friends in all the other houses while I was at Pitt State, but I was not super popular in my own house.
Bro,
Yeah.
I was going down all summer,
Yeah.
half the summer for parties,
Yep.
and trying to hang. They were,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna teach you guys a thing or two. No,
No.
but so by the time we're in school, like I know, and again, I was first pinned,
Yeah.
and I was at a function one night, late into the night, and for whatever reason, decided that I would speak with confidence about how I needed to replenish my currently exhausted supply
Yep.
of your friendly, and they all burned, and they were like, "You can't talk about that." I was devastated.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
really
I was,
wild.
I didn't. Prior to that summer, I was never like, I never gave Greek life two thoughts.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but it quickly became, this is a part of my new identity.
Yeah.
Man,
When that goes away, it hurts. Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I'm glad it all happens for a reason. and
Sure,
I wouldn't be this exact person had I done that,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
man, anyway.
Yeah, no, and nothing hurts worse than when it's your new family. You know, I mean, because like I said, that transfer to Pitt State, there was some emotional, real rough spots when I realized like half the guys in this house don't fucking want me in this house because it was an option. They had to vote me in. I was a SIG up from Washburn, but you don't just walk in and go, I'm here now.
Right.
You know, and so I'm lucky I didn't open my mouth before that vote happened, or I might not have had a house anymore. You know, so I get you.
Wow.
I get you. Yeah.
Wow.
I forget the question we went through.
The bucket list, Japan,
professional bucket
and then
list.
professional.
I don't.
You were saying
I don't have a
you're
goal in
moving
mind
back
right
into-
now. Yeah, I don't have a goal in mind right now, but I think there's a lot of civically minded and nonprofit stuff coming down the barrel at me.
Okay.
And I'm not sad about that. I'm excited that I get to flex those muscles again.
Yeah, nice.
And build relationships, build networks that can then lift other people. So I can't define it for you, and I
love
can't
that.
paint the picture yet because I'm still in transition. But
no, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Last but not least, please complete this. The world would immediately become a better place in which to live if only.
Ooh. If you had to walk into the public square to shout what you just typed on social media.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't post until a speaker hears you say it really loud in the public square.
LOL.
Yeah, yeah. That would fundamentally change there's something about that digital wall that makes people feel safe in the worst way is what's destroying us, you know? So yeah, if you want to be in the echo chamber, you have to actually go echo that
Man, I went just for a quick second to watch some nearby fireworks on Thursday and came home, and I'm going to struggle to come up with the topic, but it was a female who had asked, like genuinely, just asked, hey, what do you guys think about on Threads? And I answered, and then some other gal she wanted to go 12 rounds.
Yeah.
And immediately, the fact that she's
replying to me on somebody else's thing. I was like, oh. But she started it with calling me LUV, no love. And then had a thing.
Yeah.
And then before I could even really, because I was doing something, and then she posted again and then deleted it.
Yeah.
I was like, those were 3 really good indicators to just steer, but I hunkered down. And I was like, isn't Threads supposed to be where we're getting away from toxicity?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Literally the redesign.
Yeah.
There's no getting away from it. I mean, it's going to require an entire new cultural shift, What that looks like, I have no idea. Maybe we get censored by AI and it gets hilarious for a while, where the computers decide whether you can share that little nugget of wisdom or not, which to a point has already kind of started, and I'm not mad about it. But yeah, if people had to say with their damn mouths what they're willing to say with 2 thumbs,
with your face out there,
punchable. Yeah, right. With your punchable face out there, and not to be one of those back in my day people, but like a fundamental moment in my life was when I tried out the N-word the first time with my best friend Kendrion, growing up in Sacramento, and we were best friends at the time. We played WWF figurines together every day after school. We went and sat on his plastic wrapped couches in his grandma's house and chilled out 24/7. But I tried it out on him, and his brain flipped a switch, and he beat the shit out of me up and down a street until he threw me into a lady's door and she threatened to call the cops. At which point the switch flipped again, and we both ran scared to his house together, right? But I've never been happier that he did that, because everybody needs that moment where they learn, when have you crossed the line?
Bill Burr says.
Yeah.
It's good for you.
It's good for you. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think we need to go around punching people 24/7.
No,
but when somebody really steps, it's good to get popped in the face once or twice. You learn pain memory is very effective. And people are so safe from that now that something's broken. So I don't know what it is. And I won't go full Bill Burr or Jordan Peterson or anything like that. But
there's a lot of people, and I also don't want to go back in my day or get off my lawn, but I know that this is probably just a thing that happens generationally. But there are, and I consider myself a kind-hearted, loving person.
Yeah, sure.
But there are a lot of weird-looking youth in the world today, and I don't mean like it's just middle school, it's just high school. I mean, there's a bubble, and a lot of them, like the common denominator is like you don't look equipped to take a punch in the face, or which is fair. A lot of us aren't, but you also don't look like you're aware that is a real life option or possibility.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and given how they're programmed nowadays, and again, I work with these kids, but their vocabulary and depth of understanding for mental health, trauma, words like that, it's so much bigger than anybody thinks. And so they would be able to do a 45-page essay on the life effects of that one time I got punched in the face. They would surprise you.
Sure.
So whether that's for better or for worse for them, I leave up to them.
Yeah.
But they have the words for it that we didn't, and so that's the good news. The bad news is they're really not ready for that punch to the face.
No. So, whoever really is, though.
I don't know, man. I've learned a lot of great lessons. I've learned exactly how tough I am a couple times, and it's not very.
Yeah.
I've learned what not to say and whose space not to get into a couple times. They're great lessons. I'm better for it, But
Absolutely.
that might not be everybody. Somebody might fundamentally break if they took a really good pop to the face.
Can we learn this through a book?
Yeah. Hit their face.
Yeah. So, tylershousekc.org, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
And don't just go look. Donate. And I don't say that to be self-serving. I'm off the payroll now, so it literally doesn't help me, right? But recurring donors create your ability to have confidence in your future as a 501c3, and they literally let you plan, because you stop planning things if the recurring donations don't appear.
That's good information.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a thing that people think about.
Think about it like your paycheck showing up. If you immediately learn your paycheck's not going to show up anymore, because that's the cancellation of recurring donations, right? If your paycheck gets thinner or it disappears, you're going to fundamentally change your behavior in life. right? So 501c3s are the same. When we thin out on that end of things, we tighten up. We're not serving the people we should be serving in the same ways anymore. We lose sight of our mission even some days, because all you can think about is how am I gonna, So don't just go look. Please donate. If you can't, please tell other people about us. Please come see us. I love people in our space to hear it, smell it. They're teenagers.
Yeah.
But like seeing the effect that's occurring, please reach out to us. Come see
Am I
us.
getting a sweaty foot with flaming hot Cheetos
A lot of
combo?
hot dog breath. Just so much hot dog breath. Yeah, it's luckily we stock our bathrooms to the gills with hygiene supplies that they can take without any questions asked. So it's not as much of the musky gamer smell that I'm used to from my former career.
Right.
But yeah, we get a lot of the noise and smell. Some days are just like, ooh, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. But come see what we do, and please donate if you can, and if you can't, just make sure you know we exist. Because
Anything else that you had hoped we would cover that we did not?
no, feeling good. I think we did a whole. The therapy bill is just in the mail, I assume. You mail that later.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's a good while later.
It is.
that-
Yeah, you got to make sure my insurance lapses.
Yeah.
No, it's great. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
I've literally, you guys can see some of it, but I walked in here and started taking pictures in the room. It's real fun over here. And it really was a cold call too, because it was just an email that you shot out, like you said. And
Yeah.
some people deal with that well, and some don't. But
Absolutely. And a lot of times, the hope, it's like, okay, info@tylershousekc. I know that it's either person X's job to sort of manage the email, or maybe several people get it.
Yeah.
Surely
Yeah.
there is a person somewhere in that building or
Yeah,
under
yeah.
that would be and so
And
I just
Corey
hope,
received it, saw a podcast, and immediately felt fear, probably. And she just forwarded it to me and said, "This sounds
Oh,
like you."
it didn't
She
hit
said,
your
"This sounds
eyeballs
like
first."
You. Nope, hit her first. And she said, "If you want to do this, go do it, but I'm not doing it." So
well, thank you, Corey.
Yeah.
Cool, because
Yeah.
she just could have been like,
Yep,
delete.
delete. Yeah. We get a lot of weird stuff. Yeah, but
bet.
no, it's great, and it's cool that you found a way to fit. You get to do the music thing, which is amazing. That's why I'm here, because I stalked the Insta real briefly, and once I started seeing album covers and how organized everything was, I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. This is sweet. I'm
Well,
gonna do this."
Music has always been in some way or another a part of my life, and it's really just a way to connect with a person.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of musicians and band members, but that is not it. Anybody that's doing something cool,
Yeah.
aka pretty much everything that you've shared today, like a lot
stay
of cool
busy.
stuff, man.
I stay busy.
mean, it's a lot of selfless stuff, which I think there is
That's
a
why we didn't
shortage
talk about
of.
college much, because I crammed all the selfishness into 4 years. But I got it out of my system really well. But yeah, no, it's I'm a cynic about the world situation, and so there's only two choices to make. Like we're so many years away from the water wars and the heat death of humanity. So like I'm tired of worrying about certain things. I have no space for them anymore. And luckily that turned positive for me, because I could have easily been a cult leader or something, but we're going to go the other way, and we're going to try and lift as many other people as we can with the time we have left.
Absolutely.
And that's it,
Keep doing that. Thank you.
Yeah.
We need it. Forrest Saucier, pleasure to meet you. Super appreciate the time. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.